To talk probably doesn't have to stop in early childhood. The way someone communicates verbally plays a big role in the impression he or she makes, and with effort, a person can change weak speaking habits. Joining us from our Los Angeles bureau is communications specialist Lillian Glass. Thank you for joining us here on CNN's Newsnight Update. You have talked with and coached a lot of stars, including Dustin Hoffman for his role in Tootsie, where he played a woman.
Yes, I did.
Why don't you tell us something about that? What are some of the voice work and the body language, you describe it in your book, that you had to coach him in order to become a woman in all of the other ways, as opposed to just hair and makeup?
Well, as you know, there are sex differences in communication. When Dustin Hoffman played the woman, which was Dorothy, he used more upward inflection, he used body language that was close to his body, smiled a lot, used more facial gestures. When he played Michael Dorsey, the man, he used more expansive gestures, and he used less facial animation and didn't smile as much.
Okay, one of the things he kept doing was, yes,
Yeah.
that little patting. Did you create the role, or in terms of some of the voice and some of the southern accent and that kind of thing, and some of the body language, or was that him, or did he come and help you with some of the fine points? In other words, how much of a role do you play in coaching?
I work with the actor quite extensively, and I was the one that taught him the male-female differences in communication.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. You've also worked with Marlee Matlin to prepare her for her appearance at the Oscars.
Right, and that was one of the most moving experiences that I've ever encountered professionally, because what she did was she took all of the information and integrated it so beautifully. To be able to say, "Good morning, Vietnam," with such ease, to be able to communicate as though she was a hearing person, was quite remarkable and quite moving.
And now, you also say that your techniques can be used by people who are not movie stars, not
Absolutely.
communicators,
The reason why
to enhance their own lives.
Absolutely, because the reason why people become stars, the reason why people become very successful is because they do whatever they can to be the best thems they can become. They do whatever it takes to improve upon themselves. And I work with corporate executives, I work with people not only in show business, but people who really want to feel better about themselves in terms of the way they communicate. And everybody can do this. In fact, there are so many people that are conscious of this technique that the book, Talk to Win, has gone into its 6th printing, and it's only been out since February. America is hungry to know how to talk, how to communicate. We spend billions of dollars in this country on the latest hair fashions, on the latest clothing, wearing our hair in the right styles, having our dentistry just right, having the right body. But now, more attention is being paid to the way we communicate, because studies show that the way you speak is even more important than the way you look.
The way you speak, does that go in and out of phases, in and out of fashion?
Not really. It's not a fashion statement. It's a fact, because studies...
No, but I'm in terms of breathy and sexy is in, strong is in. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I see. Absolutely, because the tone of a person's voice has changed throughout the years. If you even watch old movies, you'll hear the high-pitched woman's voice, and then, of course, the Bacall voice, that low, sensuous tone, was quite unique at the time. And now a voice, in terms of a woman's voice, is that it really works. It's a voice that's powerful, that's articulate, that's expressive. And for men, voices that are clear, voices that emote. Those are voices that make it.
Now, Jesse Jackson certainly emotes. A lot of people consider him just one of the finest speakers on the political circuit today.
Yes,
but you mentioned that you have some problems with his voice. Do you want to elaborate on it?
I don't have problems with his voice,
his diction?
But many people find it difficult to understand him. I think he has a beautiful voice. I think he's an excellent communicator. I just think that if he would slow down a little bit, I think he could be understood by a lot more people. But I think he's wonderful in terms of the way he communicates.
Lillian Glass, we will be back in just a minute. We will also be taking your phone calls, so don't go away.
Hello, I'm Richard Anderson. How would you like to stay ahead of the news on interest rates, the stock market, real estate, Inflation. Well, I've got the answer for you. It's all here in the Kiplinger-Washington letter. You'll profit from not yet released information from the highest levels in Washington and the business community. Every week, the Kiplinger-Washington letter cuts through misinformation and gives you reliable judgment and guidance. Nobody has the time personally to read and digest all the material necessary to cope with the complex outlook for business and investments. In just 15 minutes reading time every Monday morning, you'll stay ahead of changes before they can take you by surprise. That's why you should try this introductory offer to the Kiplinger-Washington letter for 6 months. 26 weekly issues for only $26 and get free 2 reports. 1 on the best careers, the top opportunities, the most pay for the 1990s. And when you phone today, you'll also get this new exclusive Kiplinger report on the economic outlook for the next 10 years. A forecast on how you can profit most, which kinds of business will do best, where you find the highest returns with the lowest risk. A checklist of things that you should move on right now. They're yours free when you try the Kiplinger-Washington letter for the next 6 months. Smart people, decision makers, count on the Kiplinger-Washington letter. They say they can't do without it, so don't miss out. Call now. Call 1-800-922-4200. If you don't make or save many times the $26, keep the special profit forecast and the report on the best careers of the 1990s, and we'll refund the unused portion of your subscription. Do yourself a favor. Don't put it off. We'd hate to see you miss this special opportunity. Take advantage today and call now. Call 1-800-922-4200. That's 1-800-922-4200.
Always make time for you.
Families grow closer, one conversation at a time.
Welcome back. We are talking with communication specialist Dr. Lillian Glass about talking. Let's go to our phone lines. Some viewers have some questions for you, Lillian. First caller, you're on the line. You're calling from where? And your question, please. Interesting question.
Great question. I think silence is golden.
Sometimes, but not here. So let's go to another phone line. You're calling from where? And your question, please.
I'm calling from San Lorenzo, California, and I just hate my voice, and I was wondering if in listening to it you can tell me what I'm doing wrong or how I can improve it.
There are 2 things that I would do in your case. One thing is open your jaw a little more. You sound a little bit nasal. And also try to put more life in your voice. Try to inflect more. Monotone is one of the key killers in terms of communication because one loses the message. So what I would do is use more emotion in the voice and open the jaw so you won't sound as nasal.
And isn't it also you kind of have to lighten up a little bit and say, okay, my voice has a particular characteristic to it, and then enhance upon that, and not say, in other words, not be negative like she was saying, oh, I hate my voice?
Well, it's interesting. I ran a Gallup poll for the book, Talk to Win, and asked people, do you like the way you sound? Most people cannot stand the tone of their voice. They can't stand the way they sound. Yeah. And with the advent of the telephone answering machine, most people are not really comfortable. So now there's a way you can do something about it. You can improve the way you sound through the techniques.
Let's go to our next caller. You're on the air. You're calling from where? And your question, please.
I'm calling from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
My question is, how can I overcome a southern drawl? I feel it handicaps me.
Well,
first of all, Lillian, talk about it. Does a southern accent handicap you? And then what do you do to get rid of it?
Well, it depends where you are. In the South, a southern accent is wonderful. But in New York City, using a southern accent can be handicapping. And I work, of course, with a lot of performers, and those individuals, to have a southern accent would be detrimental in terms of getting more roles, winning more roles. So a southern accent is only detrimental in terms of where you're from. I personally find it charming and delightful. And if you can change the way you sound, though, you can change your accent.
What do you do to get the yowls out of your talk?
Yowls out to talk like this? Well, see, I used to talk like this, believe it or not.
Yeah, so did I.
So if I can get it, I know, I hear it in you. So if we can get it, she can get rid of it. And basically what it is to change the tone. Instead of saying ha, you say hi. So you just learn the vowel pronunciation. And in the book we have photographs that actually show you the tongue and lip and teeth placement in terms of producing certain sounds.
Are Southern people with Southern accents, are they lazy speakers?
No, they're not lazy speakers. They're wonderful speakers. It's just a different rhythm. It's just a different intonation pattern.
Okay.
Just like people from New York, they talk like really fast and like talk like this, you know, really. And it's just the opposite.
It's slower in the South. Next
Right.
caller, you're on the air. You're calling from where, and your question, please.
Yes, I'm calling from Portland, Oregon.
Go ahead.
My question is, are there specific guidelines that you have for cross-cultural communication, for being more effective with dealing with people who don't necessarily speak English as a native language?
Yes, that's a very good question. I do. And the main thing is eye contact. And that doesn't mean staring at a person's eyes, but it's communicating with that person, listening. I teach people in the book listening skills, how to actually be a more effective communicator and to show warmth in your communication pattern and make the other person feel important, as though you care about them when they're communicating to you. Because that's one of the biggest problems in our society. We don't listen and we don't learn to give and take. We just exchange dialogue, and that is unfortunate. That's not the way to be a good communicator.
I'm sorry, what did you say? No, I'm only kidding.
Hey, watch it, Susan.
Doesn't that also make the person, as they're struggling, I mean, I've tried to speak different languages, as they're struggling along with the language, it kind of encourages them?
Absolutely.
Because it's not there.
Absolutely, it does.
Okay, next caller, you're on the air. You're calling from where? And your question for Lillian Glass.
How you doing tonight? I'm calling from Nashua, New Hampshire.
Yes.
I sing in a band, and sometimes when I get out there, like in the first set, I kind of have a hard time communicating with the audience. I was just wondering if you had any advice about how to communicate better. You know?
Sure. In terms of being in front of an audience or in front of a large group of people, you have to single a few people out and talk to them, embrace them as though you're talking to one person. And it's also very important when you talk, and especially you being a musician and being around all of that noise and loud noise, you need to conserve your vocal cords. You don't need to yell. You don't need to attack your sounds. So in the book you can read about vocal hygiene, how to preserve your voice, how not to abuse your voice. And so many people are guilty of this because they speak over noise, or they can develop nodules or growths on their vocal cords if they're not careful. So it's very important to improve the way you sound in terms of the way you communicate through using vocal hygiene.
What about the voice nodules? I've heard about a lot of singers getting
Right.
them.
This happens with singers, this happens with teachers, attorneys, anybody who uses their voice to a large extent. Newscasters. So what one needs to do is use their abdominal muscles when they speak, and not use their throat muscles like this, but to bear down on their abdominal muscles and open the back of their throat and open their jaws when they communicate. It's very important to pretend you have an imaginary dime holding the back of your teeth open when you talk, so you can actually get the sound out and not clench your jaws when you talk, which makes you sound nasal and doesn't give you the most effective tone.
Okay, next caller, you're on the air. You're calling from where? And your question, please.
I'm calling from San Diego.
Go ahead.
I have an accent, and I speak with an accent. Even though I get compliments every day on the way I speak, do you think it's helpful in getting jobs, in job interview? Do you think the potential employer looks at that as a positive aspect of the person who's applying for that particular job?
Well, it's interesting that you asked the question about accents and dialects, because there are certain accents which are quite acceptable, such as a British accent, and there are certain accents which are not acceptable, such as like a Valley Girl, like nobody likes a Valley Girl. Can you imagine that?
Oh, what a tubular concept.
It's awesome. But actually, with your particular accent, I find it quite charming. And I think accents and dialects are wonderful if you could be understood. One of the people that I worked with was Julio Iglesias for the song To All the Girls, which used to be To All the Girls. And in his particular case, the accent was detrimental had he not learned to phrase things appropriately, because one could not understand it. And one can also misinterpret things. I know he was singing one song about every breath that he took, and he was saying every breath that I take, you know, and that can be problematic.
But it still might go to #1, you know?
It still will.
Next caller, you're on the air. You're calling from where? And your question, please.
Hi, I'm calling from Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yay.
And I was wondering if by listening to my voice you could help me, give me advice.
I
Well,
like
you don't
your
have
voice.
a Cajun accent.
That's what I was impressed with that. You don't. I was very impressed with the way you sound. It's very energetic, very warm quality to your voice. I'd keep doing what I was doing.
Let's go to our next caller. You're on the line. You're calling from where? And your question, please. Hello? Oh, I think the caller was too quick. Let's go to another line. Go ahead. You're calling from where?
Yes, from Idaho.
And your question?
Well, I guess it's a combination of things. One, at the moment I happen to be a DJ. I work on the radio, and I work during the evenings, and when I play the songs, I love using my deeper, sexier voice. But I guess sometimes, are there two things, really? Are there like a technique or certain techniques to, not slur my words and to, get even more successful, especially on the air, on the radio? That's one point. And also, whether this correlates or not, I hope it does in some ways. I have a weight problem, whether I'm on the air or just in daily life. Sometimes that gets in the way of everything I do, and it stops me from being more successful than I want to be or than I am. And I wonder if I can just, are there any techniques, for daily life that would help both of those things?
That's a very good question. What you need to do is concern yourself with breathing, with taking that breath in, holding it, and then flowing out your tones. Many people talk like this. They go, talk, 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 and then they run out of air, and then they have to talk faster and louder, and they can also damage their vocal cords, and they push, and it just doesn't flow properly. So what you need to do is marry your breathing and talking. Take that breath in, hold it, and then flow it out. Speak on the exhalation, and that will also help you to a great extent overcome anxiety because it helps you oxygenate yourself. So one of the things you may do is take that breath in, hold it, and flow it out.
And that is the last word, Dr. Lillian Glass. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
She is
Enjoyed
the
it.
author of Talk to Win, 6 Steps to a Successful Vocal Image. Wonderful diction, callers. Back after this.